Good afternoon, sir and classmate. This is the video presentation of Group 3. The title of our research is A Filipino Values During Spanish Era. The table of content, background of the study, problem and its solution, recommendation, reflection, and reference. The first reporter, Jenny Kubayan Kili.
Background. The Spanish have a huge influence on Filipino culture. Here's a little bit about the Spanish reign over the Philippines and some interesting things that Spain introduced to the Filipino way of life. The time that the Philippines was under Spanish rule makes up a major part of their history. Spain had control of the Philippines for more than 300 years, so it's not surprised that there are many Filipino customs, traditions, and cultural norms that can be traced back to the Spanish. They left their mark probably more so than any other foreign nation to which the Philippines was subjected. During the Spanish rule, Westernized culture gradually began to seep into the Filipino way of life. Western music, dance, art, recreation, and costumes were adopted by Filipinos. Even their beliefs and perspectives about life experienced a bit of a trip away from Eastern Muslim philosophies to a more westernized perspective.
Good day everyone. I'm John Kenneth Silim. Background. The Spanish influence on Filipino culture has been profound. Having originated from the Spanish East Indies, a variety of aspects of the customs and traditions in the Philippines today can be tracked back to this influence. The Portuguese navigator and explorer Ferdinand Magellan headed the first Spanish foray to the Philippines when he made landfall on Cebu in March 1521. A short time later, he met an untimely death on the nearby island of Mactan. After King Philip II, for whom the island are named, had dispatched 3 further expeditions that ended in disaster. He sent out Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, who established the first permanent Spanish settlement in Cebu in 1565. The Spanish city of Manila was founded in 1571, and by the end of the 16th century, most of the coastal and lowland areas from Luzon to northern Mindanao were under Spanish control. Friars marched with swords and soon accomplished the nominal conversion to Roman Catholicism over the local people under Spanish administration. But the Muslims of Mindanao and Sulu, whom the Spanish called Moros, were never completely subdued by Spain. Spanish rule for the first 100 years was exercised in most areas through a type of tax farming imported from the Americas and known as the encomienda. But abusive treatment of the local tribute payers and neglect of religious instruction by encomenderos, collectors of the tribute, as well as frequent withholding of revenues from the crown, caused the Spanish to abandon the system by the end of the 17th century. The Governor-General himself, appointed by the king, began to appoint his own civil and military governors to rule directly. Ang impluensya ng Espanyol sa kulturang Pilipino ay naging malalim, na nagmula sa silangang Indies ng Espanya, iba't ibang aspeto ng mga kawalian at tradisyon sa Pilipinas ngayon ang matutuntun sa impluensyang ito. So sinasabi daw dito na pinangunahan ng Portuguese navigator at explorer na si Ferdinand Magellan daw ang unang pandarambog ng mga Espanyol sa Pilipinas nung maglandfall daw ito sa Cebu noong Marso dekada 1521. Makalipas ang ilang sandali ay nakatagpo siya ng hindi napapanahong kamatayan sa kalapit na isla ng Mactan. Matapos magpadala si Haring Philip ng 3 karagdagang expedition na nauwi sa Sakuna. Pinadala niya si Miguel Lopez de Legazpi na nagtatag ng unang permanenteng pamayanan ng mga Espanyol sa Cebu noong dekada 1565. Ang lungsod ng Maynila ng Espanya ay itinatag noong dekada 1571 at sa mga pagtatapos ng ika-16 na siglo, karamihan sa mga baybayin at mababang lugar mula sa Luzon hanggang Hilagang Mindanao ay nasa ilalim ng kontrol ng mga Espanyol. At ang mga pral daw ay nagmarcha kasama ang mga sundalo at hindi nagtagal ay nasigawa ang nominal na pagbabagong loob sa Romano, Katolisismo ng lahat ng mga lokal na tao sa ilalim ng administrasyong Espanyol. Ngunit ang mga Muslim ng Mindanao at Sulu na tinawag ng mga Espanyol na Moro ay hindi kailanman lubusang nasakop ng Espanya. At ang mga pamumuno daw ng Espanyol sa unang 100 na taon ay sinagawa sa karamihan ng mga lugar sa pamamagitan ng isang uri ng buwis na pagsasaka ng inangkat mula sa Amerika at kilala bilang encomienda. Ngunit ang mapang-abusong pagtrato sa mga lokal na nagbabayad ng tribute at pagpapabaya sa pagtuturo ng relihiyon ng mga encomenderos pati na rin ang madalas na pagpigil na makita mula sa corona ay naging dahilan upang talikuran ng mga Espanyol ang sistema sa pagtatapos ng ika-17 na siglo. Ang Gobernador General na mismong hiniram ng hari ay nagsimulang magtalaga ng sarili niyang mga gobernador, sibil at militar upang direktang mamuro.
The third reporter, Nicole Solorejo.
The primary problem of the Philippines during Spanish era is the recognition of the Spanish crown itself in the legitimacy of settlement of Indians in the Philippines. It was in 19th century when conquistadores were at large searching for new world and society, hence their discovery of Americas and islands in Pacific East Indies. The problem in the Philippines was not experienced by Indios or indigenous and native settlers of Philippines alone, but by other colonies of Europeans. The general problem is that Westerners' superiority complex among island natives. They thought natives were either barbaric or uneducated. They applied the European standard to island natives, which does not really apply. Island natives have their own technology and mechanism, own set of laws, religion, beliefs, justice system, which does not apply to anyone else. These whites only taught their brand of education as the superior and standard. Thus, during Spanish era, Filipino society's hierarchy were always topped by peninsulares, insulares, and mestizos. Indios and negritos were below the hierarchy. Filipinos then were only coined to Spanish mestizos, insulares, or criollos. Technically, native settlers are not Filipinos because Filipinas was a product of a colonial term. Natives were Indios then. That's the advocacy which Filipino national hero fought for. Recognition of the Spanish crown to Indians as equal to Europeans, its colonizers, because all men are created equal. Look how liberal the Ilustrados then. They were really ahead of their compadres in the Philippines in terms of ideology and beliefs. So other problems are railocracy, racism of Spaniards and Filipinos, rotten justice system, corruption in the government, mamayana habit of Spanish officials, abusive Guardia Civil, too many students in the Spanish era classroom, Spanish friars corruption, or like frequent increase of rentals on the land farmed by Filipinos, relying much on miracle without work. All I mentioned happened during the 19th century, but the first century of Spanish rule is harmonious. The reason the Filipinos are willing to fight with the Spaniards against internal and external threats. At the end of 19th century, the Filipinos did not help the Spaniards to repel the American invasion. They are more interested in becoming independent from Spain. So these are the problems and its solution of the Philippines during Spanish era.
Fourth reporter, Maria Leslie Brillian Lore.
Recommendation. This research study present recommendation aims to give a brief recollection of the purpose and result of the study. This study focused on the specific Filipino values influenced by the Spanish colonialism. As the Spanish were determined to maintain trade from coastal communities and those groups of indigenous Filipinos. First, appreciate the tradition and cultural norms which influenced by the Spaniards. Even though there are many negative things that Spaniards given to the Filipinos, but there are still positive contributions that the Spanish government given to us. And one of this positive contribution is their culture. Through the church, many Filipinos were also trained in agriculture, language, and arts. They brought Western architecture and facilitated the construction of churches where Filipinos were able to express their artistry. This served as a guide what Spanish made to our country. for their historical contribution that brought such as good things to the Filipinos that help us to improve our culture itself. The Spanish government also helped the Filipinos in their educational situation and academics, and the religious things that we should value, as well as the Spanish taught us some of the little pleasure in life such as procrastination.
Hi, I'm January Farlaudin. My reflection about Spanish colonization has a big impact for all of us. It turned on our minds their maltreatment and their great contribution to us. I believe that our community may not be colonized if we Filipinos have the wisdom of what is our beautiful lands of promise. The abundance that we have, we talk about nature sources, most especially the technic beauty of our country. Sometimes when I ask myself, but if we have this awareness and knowledge before, are we like this? Are you will slave in our own country? Well, slave in our very hard and about for me. It's the truth. As I observe in today's generation, we are still enslaved in our own country. Other nationalities acted like they were our bosses. It should be like that. No one and the boss, but we Filipinos should be the boss of our own lands. When the Spanish come, they were the first country who allowed the benefits coming from our nature sources. There are a lot of culture and tradition our ancestor has a big devastated because of their influence. They have done, but maybe there are things we need be thankful for. These parts of life were forced into peril and the Filipino begins that strict back. Spanish took a gender and the Filipino has lived a parents not a sibling whom do who to love regard. They'll change our agreement of a government and they go to be rulers. That makes landless obvious that attack the Filipinos, particularly the Landis and young sisters. I can arrange the real celebration that hawan namin revelations that happened amid that Spanish expansionism into three seasons. Individual political and religious revelations as a man and intrigue with body and soul, inside employness in will, race, reason, and violation, and can be bound the particle partialated and their or here nature, right and nobility as a man. The privilege, the life right to religious flexibility and right and political try. And that's all. Thank you.
This is the reference of my researcher that we use in our topic.